let's get to the beginning. Tell us what inspired you to write Eat Your Greens. What was the catalyst that sparked the creation of this book?
I think about 10 years ago, I was personally fed up that a lot of the models and ideas that I was using as a consultant at that time were just not very well funded in terms of having a lot of facts to support some of the ideas and the models I was using. So I think that sort of was the first spark to my first sort of itch, so to speak. And then just progressively throughout the years, I think it just became more than a little itch. And about 3 years ago, after also just writing myself a lot more about some of the science that I was looking into and reading about, and trying to, write about myself in simple terms so more people might actually be willing to pick it up, because not everybody's very much into science. I actually also realized that, like me, there were so many other people like me who were trying to do exactly the same thing, globally. And that, in my presentation, I used the analogy of the coffee grains, a little heap that you blow away. But that's, I think, very similar what's going on in the industry. There are so many smart people that have so many interesting things to say, but they're just so spread out. And just by, my idea was just if we could just bring those people together, and obviously in the form of a book in this case, it will be easier for people to spot it and to see it, because actually there's a thing on the table now, or whatever. But it's just bringing those people together, and I felt it was much more interesting to have a book with stories and ideas from multiple people with various backgrounds than just me yapping my head off with what I think is sensible. So that's essentially how it came about.
So if a marketer were to pick up the book, what sort of insights can he or she expect, like a CMO, what can he take away from the book?
Well, many things do, actually. That's the great thing about having multiple peoples reflect on how we can do a better job at marketing. And the idea of the book was obviously that people needed to support their ideas with facts.
Correct.
So it's not just, I think, we should be doing this. No, it's because of these and these facts. I believe that we need to go in that direction or this direction, or we need to spend more on these types of media or less on these types of media. But the thing is that what a CMO will probably get out of it is actually a very simple answer on how you can do a better job at marketing, the facts that support it, but in many, many areas, because even in the talk today, I talked about what some of these facts actually mean for creativity, for actually creating ads, but as I just said, the investments you would make in media, but also just what you should be focusing on in marketing research or not. And obviously the end goal, in my view, for any CMO also, the great benefit of knowing about these things is that you will be able to sell more stuff, which is really what marketers should do. They're being paid to sell more stuff. But they'll be spending less on things that don't work, which is something CMOs are actually kind of keen on as well. How can I save money?
At this point, I want to ask you, if you had to give an advice, to brands and advertisers, who want to sort of make their brands distinct in terms of marketing and advertising, what would you tell them?
First and foremost, I think just ask yourself, so what are the things that we consider to be sort of distinct features and assets of our brand? You analyze that, you look into that, and then second, you test those, whether actually people indeed do see, whether it's a logo or a shape, whether people actually play that back to you, and more specifically, the amount of people that pay that back. Because you might actually think that you've got a very strong tagline or a very strong logo or a character or something like that, but actually if only 10% of the people will recognize it, that's clearly not distinct in the sense that it's going to be a real asset for you. So if you mean by distinct things like that, I think my first advice really would be, so have you actually really measured the distinctiveness, the degree of distinctiveness of your brands and their assets? And it's actually very interesting that many of the marketers that I talk to actually can't give me a real clear-cut answer.
Right.
They're assuming that people will know about the brand and its assets, but in many cases it's not supported by any research, and it's not hard to do actually. So that's that would be a start.
Okay, so you have curated this book, but is there any one book which inspired you or inspires you still, during your earlier years and stuff?
Yeah, so I told you about that little itch.
Yeah.
That was about 10 years ago, and the book that really inspired me to look into this much more deeply and more intensively was Byron Sharp's book, How Brands Grow, which is, I think, by now a fairly well-known book. I don't know how many people have actually read the book, but it's a well-known book. But actually, if you read that book, you'll also quickly find out that that book is actually supported by decades of research that was pioneered by Andrew Ehrenberg. And Andrew Ehrenberg is, in my view, really one of marketing's really truly great men. So picking up How Brands Grow is great because Byron and his colleagues are doing some excellent work. But I would encourage people to read up on the earlier work as well from Andrew Ehrenberg, and you'll be on your way of doing a much better job in marketing. But that's inspired me the most.
Is there any blog or podcast you follow on marketing, or anyone you follow on Twitter for that?
Yeah. There's quite a few people that I follow. It's actually, so as I said, progressively I found out there were so many more people that were sharing ideas like myself on how we could do a better job, and I've started following those people, and that's how I was actually also able to ask people like Ferris, who's here today, Rory. Dave Trott is someone I follow as well. So there's a whole bunch of people that I would recommend people to follow, but I would need to look up on my phone, but because it's a long list, and there's not necessarily one or two people that sort of really stand out for me. It's actually the whole idea that it's just such a varied group of people that all have interesting things to say and share. But so Twitter is a very important source of information for me. I haven't been a great listener of podcasts. I've been asked to do podcasts more frequently. I think what Mark Pollard does is really, really good in the sense that he truly
has his own podcast.
Yeah, Sweathead, and I featured on it at the ending of last year. And he has a really good way of having a really good, nice, casual conversation. So I think podcasts like that are interesting, maybe to get better understand some of the people that you might be following already a little bit better in a more interesting way. There's a few other podcasts, but to be honest, for me, Twitter is really one of my go-to sources to find information from the people I follow.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Those were like quick 5 questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the rest of ZML.
Yeah, I will. It's
a
great conference. So
great.
that's fine.